The light forgets, and the light forgives. And there are few examples of this more true than the story of the Crow, the city's newest hunter vanguard. Let's talk about his journey from his past lives to the final shape, and accepting the vanguard dare. But before we continue with this video, I'd like to say thank you, Advanced GG, for all your support. If you buy their products, I get a cut of that. Spycer 10 is my code. Love their stuff. Anyways, let's continue with the video. During the golden age of humanity, a set of twins were born to a woman named Osana. These were the Sov siblings, Mara and Uldren. Yes, I meant to say Uldren. Now uldren, I'll get to that. This human family would board the Yang Lue colony ship, otherwise known as the Exodus Green, because, as a teenager, Mara Sov witnessed her coworker die on a spacewalk in Jovian orbit because a frozen rabbit embryo was flying at something probably like 24.5 meters per second squared for who knows how long, so Mara took that as an omen of things to come. So she ended up convincing her mom that they should board the colony ship. The Sovs were employed on the ship, and among the 900 humans crewing the ship, and tens of thousands more in cryostasis. Uldren's sister Mara was beloved on the ship for fixing things constantly, and Uldren himself was a prize fighter. So the Sovs, especially Mara, were very influential and looked up to, in a sort of pseudo-cultish way. The Exodus Green was the lead vessel for Project Amarita, a mission to colonize new worlds without the Traveler's blessings. And oh, how that one would backfire. So, basically, extremely shortly after the Exodus Green embarked on its journey, the Witness pulled up. The collapse did done collapse human civilization, but the Exodus Green was caught between the dark influence of the Witness and the Traveler's dying breath. Mara Sov had accepted death, choosing to go on a spacewalk, watching what could have been the end of the universe, planting her in the epicenter of the paracausal conflict. As a singularity formed, swallowing the Exodus Green and all her inhabitants, Mara would be the first to realize her own existence and would shape the Awoken. We don't know why she chose for the Awoken skin to be blue. I could be like a kink or something. Yeah, Mara's kind of a freak, but she's also a gaslighter and a really good one. Mara Sov convinced the Exodus Green's captain, Captain Alice, that actually she was the first in the Distributary. So Mara would use Captain Alice to shape the world that the Awoken would inhabit. The Awoken would have to will themselves into their new bodies following the template of Mara Sov. So only bad blue bitches with glowing eyes. Many Awoken were able to do this easily. Uldren couldn't do it on his own, so Mara went into his mind, altering his memories and his personality, eventually forcefully yanking her twin brother into existence. This is when Uldren became Uldren. Mara and Uldren would forever be cosmically linked due to this. A part of Mara was left in Uldren. They would always be able to sense each other and feel the other's existence. The Distributary was now home to nearly 100,000 Awoken, and time moved faster in the pocket dimension, allowing the population to further grow quickly. Mara was living a political thriller for hundreds of Earth years and thousands of Distributary years. Uldren was just vibing and acting as his twin sister's muscle and most loyal servant. When Shuraido came to assassinate Mara, she refused because, you know, how are you gonna harm mommy Mara Sov? I get it. Uldren was chosen as Mara's champion to fight in her place for her life, so Uldren drew with Shuraido in hand-to-hand combat, but he's not as good of a marksman, but he's a better pilot. So he won that competition. So yeah, the competition between Shuraido and Uldren was best 2 out of 3 fight is 1.5 to 1.5. So Shuraido said fuck it, and then she just topped Mara. Now Mara and her girlfriend and Uldren would insist for the Awoken to return to Sol to help their ancestors, the humans of Earth. So the Sovs left and set up shop in the Reef, otherwise known as the Asteroid Belt. Many Awoken would leave the Reef for Earth, and an Awoken civil war would spark over the idea of Awoken living on Earth. So Mara decided that the Awoken needed a real culture, a home, power. Uldren was already the Awoken spy master and the closest person to Mara, so he searched the solar system for something, a power, something for only the Awoken to wield. Then he found a young Ahamkara, Riven. The Awoken spy master would give his sister, the new queen of the Reef, this bad dragon in order to have an unparalleled power through wish magic. As Mara and Riven created the Dreaming City, Prince Uldren would keep tabs on potential threats, including the Black Garden. Mara already banned her subjects from investigating the garden, but Uldren brought a team in anyways. And by team, I mean one other person with him. To get in, Uldren tricked a Gate Lord into opening the portal to the Black Garden and had it killed by a Cabal legionary. Uldren and his wingman entered the garden and saw its beauty, taking some of the asphodelia flowers and observing the Black Heart. Uldren saw the beauty of the garden, and it touched his mind. He wished to protect it, especially from guardians. Once he returned, he gave the asphodelia flowers to Mara. They spread the flowers across the Dreaming City, and Mara scolded her twin brother for defying her orders. Although Uldren was the spy master of the Awoken and an excellent tracker in his own right, he was never able to locate a gift from his sister, the Agar Scepter, a stasis trace rifle that could unlock parts of the Dreaming City, but is also a reference to a story that Uldren would tell Awoken children, the story of Agar and Riga, twin kestrels whose stories were based on the bond between Uldren and Mara. This scepter would be recovered by the Guardian way further in the future. While Uldren never discovered Agar's scepter, he did have many victories, and one of his greatest victories was during the Reef Wars. The Awoken intercepted a Fallen message. This was that the houses of the Fallen were working together to spark the Battle of Six Fronts on Earth. The Awoken ambushed the House of Wolves near Ceres and used the Harbingers to blow up the planetoid, killing most of the House of Wolves, including their Kel. This was the first strike of the Reef Wars. After that, the Awoken really sucked for a while, until Uldren and the Crows learned how to decrypt Fallen encryptions. So after that, they could track the Wolves' movements easier, and Uldren would keep the Fallen spread thin and away from each other. To do this, he requested the help of the Techians, who created fake Harbingers to scare the absolute ever-living shit out of the Fallen. Eventually, the Crows, Uldren's spies, brought in Varix, the last Fallen of House Judgment, who told the Awoken exactly what the Wolves would do. The Awoken finally won the Reef Wars, and the House of Wolves would serve under Mara Sov. But, more importantly to this video, Uldren Sov would serve under Mara. The Prince of the Awoken was a spy master, a prince, and an ace pilot, but most of all, he was the most loyal servant of Mara Sov. Mara forced her twin brother into existence within the Distributary, and she is the same person that convinced their mother to board the colony ship a colony ship that she would become a cult of personality on. She formed what the Awoken would be. She manipulated people into forming a universe and a culture just so she could secretly pull the strings until it was her time to reveal herself. Mara Sov is one of the greatest manipulators and liars in the Destiny universe. She was the person who was closest to Uldren and the one who brought him back to life. Sure, she probably loved him, and he loved her too. No. Look, I know the old Forsaken memes. That's not real. I swear. But anyways, Uldren, he was just a lapdog, a chess piece, a pawn, a cog in her plans, and he unknowingly, happily went along with it. Uldren would continue being his sister's most trusted servant, including when the Guardian requested counsel with the Awoken to learn how to access the Black Garden. Uldren refused to aid the city to protect the Garden and the Black Heart. Also his ego too. But more important than his ego is Mara's commands, and she told him to make a key for the Guardian to access the Black Garden. This also led to a moment where Uldren would question Mara's motives until she puts him into his place. When Skolas and the House of Wolves rebelled against the Awoken, Uldren was constantly gathering info on Skolas in his attempts to become the Kell of Kells. Uldren admired how the House of Kings were able to puppet master the House of Devils, and both refused to kneel under Skolas, even killing wolves. But eventually the Guardian would help capture Skolas, and as Varix and the Sov twins taunted the captured Kell, he warns them of something coming to the system, that being Oryx, the Taken King. So Uldren needed to bring Osiris and Eris to the Reef so the group could come up with a plan, a scheme to defeat the Taken King. During the opening cutscene of Destiny, The Taken King, 2015, Mara Sov and Uldren Sov would both fucking die to Oryx. No, they didn't. Well, Mara kinda did. Anyways, Uldren lost all of his crows and many Awoken died. The prince would crash land on Mars, his ship in total disrepair. And in this situation, he snapped, blaming Guardians and the city for the deaths of the Awoken pilots battling the Dreadnought. On Mars, Uldren could faintly feel the presence of his sister. But as he tried to leave the Martian atmosphere, he was shot down by Cabal, and he felt Mara fading away. In an act of desperation, the Forsaken Prince went into hiding and was captured by the House of Kings. The Kell of Kings would submit to Uldren, and together they would unite the Fallen, mostly under one banner. The House of Dusk was born, and Uldren was highly regarded by the Fallen for uniting the houses under one banner, something that Skolas attempted a few years back. If you were ever wondering where the Awoken were during the Red War, well, here it is. The Broken Legion were Cabal held in the Prison of Elders, and they were causing a ruckus, so the Awoken placed a heavy focus on them while the Red Legion swooped into the Reef. Uldren knew the Broken Legion was a diversion, and the Red Legion was on its way. But he didn't alert the Awoken. Instead, he brought House Dusk to the Reef to further destroy it, and to ensure that Petra couldn't help the last city. Uldren, destroying his home, killing innocent people, and stealing from everyone, all because he blamed the last city for Mara Sov's death. Mind you, Osiris and Eris made this plan with Mara while Uldren was in the room. Bro is actually just fucking abysmally dumb. Well, actually, it's probably him being confused and lashing out due to his codependency to his sister and severe abandonment issues. Anyways, while Gull ripped the Traveler bong too hard and fucking died, Uldren couldn't feel Mara anymore. So he became an alcoholic. Nah, I'm just joking. He drank ether until he blacked out and became numb every day. So basically an alcoholic. This is also when Riven's corruption would afflict Uldren. This corruption would lead Uldren to Fikrul, believing he would find his sister again. Instead, he found an elixir that was recently shitted on by Cayde's golden gun. Uldren got upset and cried for Fikrul, wishing that he wouldn't die. This caused Riven to corrupt Fikrul's ether, filling him with dark ether, creating the first of the Scorn. Fikrul would see Uldren as his father, and so would the other Scorn. But how did the other Scorn come to be? Well, while the houses united, the kings and the devils were still strong and associated with House Dusk, but were still somewhat separated from the other Fallen. Uldren and Fikrul invaded the kings, turned them into Scorn, and docked the Kel's arms. Now Uldren has a paracausally charged army that are devoted to him as their living god. So he tries to find Mara again by harassing Techians and trying to convince Petra to help him. Instead, she asks cayde to help imprison him within the Prison of Elders, and Uldren would be locked away forever. Nah, actually, Fikrul convinced Varix to betray the Awoken, releasing the Scorn and Mara Sov from the Prison of Elders. Petra Venge would call on Cayde and the Guardian to help stop what she at the time thought was a prison riot. But once seeing the prince's cell being open, Petra realized it was a prison break. The Barons got the jump on Cayde and killed his ghost, Sundance. Now Cayde was mortal, and Uldren took the Ace of Spades and killed Cayde with his own gun. Uldren would storm his sister's throne room and told the Scorn Barons that his dead sister is their true leader, and he told them to go play around in the Tangled Shore. Here is where Riven, in Mara's voice and image, would tell Uldren that loving her is not enough, and he needs to fully devote himself to his sister Mara. Not gonna lie, I would do it in a heartbeat. The only way to free her would be the extinction of the Awoken. So Uldren went to the Shard of the Traveler in the EDZ and he yoinked part of it. Petra would attempt to assassinate the prince here, but she barely missed him due to her lack of depth perception. Uldren traveled to the Dreaming City, bringing with him light and dark, before Riven's meatball insulted him, then promptly vored him. What the fuck? The Guardian chewed up the meatball, leaving Uldren Sov weak and on the ground. The Guardian would retrieve the Ace of Spades, and Uldren had nowhere to run, or rather, crawl. So Uldren tried to make the Guardian question their own morality, and the Ghost tried to stop the Guardian from killing Uldren until Petra said, "I'm gonna smoke his ass if you don't." So together, the Guardian and Petra Venge killed Uldren Sov. And Mara, in her throne world, felt Uldren's heartbeat stop, confirming the Forsaken Prince was no longer alive. And that's it. Video's over. Please like, comment, subscribe. Oh, yeah. Also, use the link in the description, the pinned comment, for some advanced GG. I personally love their products and have for years. Use code Spycer10 for 10% off at checkout. And, you know, I get money from that. Oh, wait. What's up? Is that a ghost carrying a tub of advanced GG Mr. Fruit's Cherry Limeade Focus Formula? Oh my god, Uldren Sov is alive again! Well, actually, the body of Uldren Sov was resurrected by a ghost called Pulled Pork. This ghost renamed his guardian, as many ghosts do. He would call his charge the center fielder for the Chicago Cubs, Pete Crow Armstrong! Crow, a name borrowed from the Awoken spies under Uldren's command in his old life. The new light Awoken then renamed his ghost Glint, because apparently that is somehow a better name than Pulled Pork. His other options were Gleam and Flash. Sorry, but Pulled Pork clears all three of those. Anyways, Mara could feel, again, the heartbeat of Mara Sov, but this time, it was different. The new light would roam the tangled shore. Whenever a guardian would encounter him, they would normally, just kill him, and this would continue for a while, including a sunbreaker that broke nearly every bone in the crow's body, then left him on the ground to die from internal bleeding. Eventually, Crow would travel to Earth to join the last city, but wouldn't actually commit to entering the city out of fear. Crow was completely and all alone. Other Lightbearers hated him, and the Scorn would call him Daddy. Crow, like all Lightbearers, especially non-exos, had severe amnesia, and remembered none of his past life, let alone his name. But he obviously knows that he was a terrible person in his past life, but didn't know what he did. The only person to love Crow, or show him the slightest level of appreciation, was Glint, who would try to cheer him up any chance he could, especially during their first dawning together. Eventually, the Spider learned about a Lightbearer who bared a striking resemblance to Mara Sov, that was lonely and shit in mop buckets. So the Spider would take Crow under his wing, and by that I mean he enslaved him and placed explosive charges in Glint's shell so Crow couldn't run away. And it took Crow way too long to figure out that the Elixni mob boss of the Tangled Shore didn't have his best interests at heart, but due to the explosive in Glint's shell, he was forced to stay anyways. Eventually, when Xivu Arath's forces pushed into the solar system and the Wrathborn infestation took hold, the Spider needed to ask the city a favor. Crow would be sent to assist Osiris on the moon and save the freshly lightless warlock's life. Well, actually at this point Osiris was body snatched by Savathun, but that's not the point. With Osiris out of commission, the Spider would ask the Guardian, who killed Uldren, to help stop the Wrathborn. The Spider thought the Guardian would be half as amused about the Crow's current state as he was. They weren't. Together, the Crow and the Guardian would track down Wrathborn bosses using the cryptoglyph lure that Crow made. The two Lightbearers would slay high-level Wrathborn to slow the invasion and eventually killed the High Celebrant who was leading Xivu Arath's Wrathborn invasion. But not before the Crow and Spider both shared dreams of a bird in the EDZ. After Crow and the Guardian follow Crow's dream, they learn it was a vision from the Traveler, alerting Crow about Savathun's take in Light Eaters consuming the shard of the Traveler. On this outing, the Traveler itself gifts Crow his ship and his very own Hawkmoon. A unique fanfire role, apparently. Once the Wrathborn issue was dealt with, it was time for the Spider to pay up. The Elixni offered the Guardian any trinket from his collection. Instead, they chose the twink in his collection, meaning now the Guardian owns Crow and Glint. Well, they immediately freed Crow, but now that the Crow is beginning his journey to becoming a Guardian, and obviously the first order of business is for him to get a new fit. So Savathun, goes to Ava Levante to buy Crow a new outfit, which includes a weird mask that I always hated. Like, why not just give him a real dead-ass fucking helmet? Surely, there would be no consequences at all to Ava giving him a flimsy mask, right? Anyways, Crow gets high recommendations from Osiris and the Guardian to the Vanguard. And They're directly mentioning him to keep him close. The Vanguard don't know who Crow is at this point, by the way, so Crow is helping oversee operations during the peace talks with the Cabal Empire and cayde, while also being Zavala's bodyguard. Lord Saladin would kind of mentor Crow in his journey in this time and take the Crow under his wing. While this is happening, Crow spends his free time, well, most of it, with Amanda Holiday. And let's just say, the mask stayed on. One night as Zavala took a walk around the tower, due to his inability to sleep during this time, Crow followed to keep an eye on him. Thankfully, Crow did follow, because that night a Scion rebel attempted to assassinate Zavala. Unfortunately, Crow hated his mask too, and didn't wear it. Meaning, when Zavala looked in the direction of the shot that saved his life, he saw the face of Uldren Sov. Zavala just chopped it up to sleep-deprived hallucinations. Crow's dedication to the Vanguard and his position as Zavala's bodyguard would be tested again. During the final peace talks with the Cabal Empire, Zavala and cayde shared their blood oath as a Scion rebel assassin would once again attempt to kill Zavala. A light suppressing net was cast over Tarj, and another Scion would try to use a ceremonial knife to kill the commander. Crow leaped in front of the Titan Vanguard, blocking the Scion strike with his face before cayde killed the Scion. God, I wish I was that Scion. Oh yeah, Crow freed Tarj from the light-suppressing cage, and his face was revealed to Zavala. Zavala, understandably, was stunned, absolutely shocked to see the face of Uldren Sov, the man who killed Cayde 6. Zavala took a moment to make a choice. Guardians aren't allowed to know their past life, so why should the sins they committed be pinned to them now? The light forgives, the light forgets. Even Uldren Sov deserved a second chance after the Traveler chose him to be a Guardian. While Zavala understands that Crow is his own person and he is not Uldren Sov, many would still be upset that Uldren Sov was in the last city alive, including Ikora Rey. So Zavala would ask Crow to lay low for the time being and gave him assignments outside the city to help him stay safe from the wrath of the other Lightbearers. One of these assignments included helping the Elixni Quarter gather resources. He did this by stealing them from the Spider, and he would continue to do some odd jobs for the Vanguard for a while. Once the Endless Night was over and Savathun placed herself in Awoken custody, Crow was drawn into the seasonal plot. Crow was reunited with a sister he didn't remember, and who he shared a mutual disdain with. Mara was pissed at Crow because he wasn't the easily manipulated and devoted servant to her that Uldren was. And Crow thought Mara was a terrible person, manipulative, a gaslighter, a liar. Oh yeah, and Petra also threatened to kill Crow a couple times. Savathun would taunt everyone, especially Crow, being that she mentored him while she was masquerading as Osiris. But Savathun shows Crow who he was before his resurrection by giving him all of Uldren Sov's memories, which absolutely devastated him. Crow looked up to Cayde. Then he learned that his hands were the ones that pulled the trigger that killed him. This broke Crow, and he questioned everything, and he couldn't look at the Guardian. You know, the same Guardian that killed Uldren Sov. So Crow requested to change assignments to anything else. As the forces of Xivu Arath tried to invade the Dreaming City, Lord Saladin would closely mentor Crow and treated the New Light as his son, and the two of them worked as ambassadors between the Last City and the Cabal Empire. When the Guardians killed tons of Cabal to board Savathun's throne world, cayde got kinda understandably pretty angry, and Crow stood in the meetings between Zavala and the Empress, and he became an important part of the operations to stop the Lucent Hive's plans. And once Crow learned that the Hive Lightbearers were being held in a painful state of suspended animation, he wasn't too happy, so he unplugged the scion that was reading their minds, which killed the scion. This scion was Cayde's best friend. So Cayde wanted Crow dead. And Zavala refused to, let that happen. And he almost used his light on the Empress. Lord Saladin stepped between Cayde and Crow, offering his life to the Empress, sparing his mentee. And Cayde was impressed. And so she offered the Iron Lord a spot on her war council instead of taking his life. Crow was barely scolded for nearly destroying the coalition in its infancy. After Crow royally fucked up, he went to therapy with the help of Eris Morn and the Guardian. He accepts Uldren Sov and that they're different sides of the same coin. But Crow isn't guilty of the sins of Uldren Sov, but he can learn from them to be a better Guardian and a better man. But as Crow becomes more confident and accepts himself, Amanda doesn't, and she leaves him because he killed her father figure and then hid that from her. No, he didn't know that he did that most of the time he's been alive. After going to therapy, Crow gets really into looks maxing along with jelking, jorking, and edging his shit. And he just kind of disappeared for months until the Traveler was about to leave, when he just looked at it and kind of fucked off again for a bit. But the Coalition needed to protect the Traveler from the Witness. They failed to do that, and the Guardian does nothing on Neptune for the span of 2 hours as everyone watches the Witness penetrate the Traveler. Eventually, the Guardian came back from vacation to help fight the Cabal on Earth. Amanda's ship was shot down in the fight with the Witness a few hours before that, maybe a day ago. The timeline's weird. But yeah, Crow and the Guardian save Amanda Holiday, and she shoots Crow. The two of them are finally back on speaking terms, and Crow is trying to riz her up again. But then she fucking dies. Crow gets upset and leads an attack on the Cabal to avenge Amanda Holiday. Note, this is the Shadow Legion Cabal, not Cayde's Empire. Then after that, he just leads some new hunters and helps the Vanguard with anything. Probably more gooning, edging, looks maxing, jelking, all that shit for a while, because he just disappears again until 6 months later, a little more than that. Anyways, it becomes clear that the only way to stop the Witness is to get inside the Pale Heart. The only way inside of the Pale Heart is a wish fulfilled by Riven. So Crow hops on comms to help the Guardian as Petra constantly flames his ass and Mara tries to reconnect with her twin brother. In an attempt to reconnect, Riven sees an opportunity to manipulate Crow again by disguising herself as Mara Sov and asking Crow if he had any regrets, to which Crow accidentally wishes for the chance to apologize to Cayde for Uldren killing him. But when it becomes time to enter the portal, Riven reveals only one person can go through. So Crow steps forward and says he'll do it. He explains that with his connection to Mara, they should be able to find each other once he goes through the portal. So Osiris says, okay, bet. Then explains that he could maybe, probably, perchance, match the frequency from the Veil to the Sov twins' connection to allow the city's forces through the portal into the Pale Heart. After Crow jumps into the portal, he just falls for... it got delayed, so what was 3 months became 6 months, and he just fell non-stop that whole time. Well, it turns out a while back the Witness made a new Heart of the Black Garden, so Osiris finally figured that out and needed the Guardian to destroy it to finish the portal's connection. Oops, sorry, Crow. Anyways, Crow finally falls into the Pale Heart where he sees the legendary Cayde 6. The two hunters shoot at each other, both missing every single shot, just like a real PvP match. Eventually, Cayde gets the best of Crow and has him pinned. The former hunter Vanguard ready to get his revenge on Uldren Sov, until Glint reveals himself. Crow and Cayde set up camp and agree to work together. Well, after Cayde watched Crow sleep, thinking about all the different ways he could kill him and how much pain he could cause Crow as he kills his ghosts and ends Crow. Until Glint apologized for Sundance being murdered by Uldren and the Scorn Barons. Then Cayde is finally able to, in his mind, separate Crow from Uldren, allowing the two to get closer. Cayde would take a special interest in Crow, giving him one-on-one tips like getting better boots and a better haircut. Mara and Osiris would finally establish a link to Crow, allowing the Guardian and the Vanguard to piggyback into the Pale Heart of the Traveler. While on patrol in the Pale Heart, Crow is drawn to the dark, leaving Glint behind, and the Witness tries to make Crow a disciple, promising the respect of his sister, a purpose, and the Awoken Throne. Crow refused the Witness's offer, and Crow would reunite with the Guardian and Glint, and the group would talk to Cayde to strategize a way to find Ikora and a Zavala, to stop the Witness together. Crow would kinda take a back seat for a few missions besides revealing that he brought Cayde back with an Ahamkara wish on accident, but Crow would help throughout the campaign, and when the Vanguard retreated from the monument after injuring the Witness, Mara used their connection to bring the Coalition forces into the Pale Heart. With the days before the final shape, let me explain this, canonically the final shape occurring, not the DLC, this is the same day, but like a couple days after story-wise, chronologically. Anyways, Crow would continue working under Cayde, learning from him. The two hunters would work with the Guardian to investigate some dark ether fuckery. During this stakeout, Cayde and Crow bond some more. And after the hunters killed an overflowing abomination and a ton of mini-screebs, Cayde would give Crow a new cloak. And he told him that he would not be returning to his Vanguard duties, and Crow is fit for the job and ready for it. And as Crow tells Cayde that he can't fill his boots, and how much he looks up to the old Hunter Vanguard, Cayde dares Crow to think about taking the Vanguard job. And that he would do. A few days later, the raid on the Witness's monolith would take place. The final shape was stopped, and then the Crow would join the final assault on the Witness in the Excision mission. After the victory, Crow would return to the tower in a new cloak, and a new haircut, and a new job. Crow is now the new official Hunter Vanguard, and his first order of business is to tell the Guardian, Ikora, and Zavala to relax, enjoy the moment of relaxation after the death of the Witness. But second order of business is to establish a no-fly zone and investigate said no-fly zone that was caused by the paracausal energy that's pouring out from the Traveler after the death of the Witness, while also searching for the anomalies, the echoes of the Witness. Also, I forgot to mention this, but like the Witness also offered to bring Amanda Holiday back for Crow, and he still didn't fold, so, you know, good job Crow, I guess. But like to loop back to like actually important stuff that happens in the game and lore and all that, one of the echoes that Crow's like kind of in charge of looking for would find its way to Fikrul, the Fanatic. The Scorn would invade Reef Reborn on Europa, and House Salvation would request help from the tower, which is massive because why would they do that? So Crow would oversee the operation to save the Elixni on Europa and squash the Scorn threat that he's kind of responsible for, being that Uldren created the Scorn with the help of Riven. And in helping the remnants of House Salvation, Crow orders the arrest of Aramis and orders her to be taken alive. Surely, this will not backfire. But in Crow's defense, he just began his tenure as Vanguard, and he probably doesn't want human Elixni relations in the city to be worse than they already are. But, of course, Fikrul would try to get Crow on his side. Obviously, doesn't work, and the conflict with the Revenant Scorn would continue, and the Elixni would become more desperate, leading Ido to freeing Aramis. Crow knew this would probably happen, and he offered Aramis a deal. She helps stop Fikrul, and she gains her freedom. And then she is gonna try to return to the original Reese, and Crow just lies to everyone in the city and basically said, Aramis is gone now. That's crazy, isn't it? Anyways, that's about it for this video. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that junk. Maybe share the video, I guess. Check out EventsGG using my link down below, code Spycer10 to get 10% off, and I get paid if you do that. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Check out live streams, all the links, all that stuff. Thank you so much. See ya.